Welcome to Musa Bytes. Here we make complex technology simple and accessible for everyone. So, the race for AI supremacy is officially on. And to really get your head around just how massive this is, think about this quote from NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang. He's not talking about a new gadget or some cool app. No, he's saying this is a full-blown industrial revolution, just as big, just as important as when we first harnessed electricity. I mean, wow. Okay, so to really understand this revolution, you've got to understand NVIDIA's role in all of it. And here's the key, according to Huang himself. Don't just think of them as a chip company. That's missing the point. He says they're a platform, the actual foundation that basically every AI company in the world is built on. We're talking about companies discovering new drugs, building self-driving cars. You name it, they're probably using NVIDIA's tech to do it. And if you want a sense of just how huge this platform is, check this out. Long before AI was the big thing, NVIDIA was basically building the entire modern gaming industry from the ground up. Today, their gaming platform has 300 million active users. That's insane. And it was that massive gaming ecosystem that became the perfect launchpad for them to totally dominate in AI. So, okay, how in the world do we even begin to make sense of this massive global AI competition? Well, Jensen Huang has this really simple but brilliant analogy. He says, think of it like a 5-layer cake, and each one of those layers, it's its own battlefield. To win this whole thing, you can't just be good at one layer. You've got to compete on all 5. All right, so let's walk through these 5 layers from the bottom up. They pretty much frame the entire race. At the very base, the foundation, you've got energy. Then, sitting on top of that are the chips and systems. You use those to build the next layer, which is infrastructure. That infrastructure is what lets you run the models, the actual AI brains. And finally, at the very top, you've got the applications, which is where it all meets the real world. Okay, let's start at the bottom, layer 1, energy. And honestly, this is the absolute foundation of everything. You can't overstate it. Without just massive, incredible amounts of electricity, you can't build the chip factories, you can't power the supercomputers, and you definitely can't run the giant data centers that are basically the AI factories of the future. It all starts right here. All right, moving up the stack, we hit layer 2, chips and systems. Think of these as the specialized hardware, the actual brains of AI. And yeah, this is totally NVIDIA's home turf. Right above that is layer 3, infrastructure. Now, this is interesting. It's not just the crucial software that makes everything work together, but it's also something really tangible. We're talking about the sheer physical ability to build these enormous data centers and to do it fast and at a massive scale. Next up, we're at layer 4, the models. These are the AIs themselves. And look, we've all heard of ChatGPT, right? But that is just the tiniest tip of the iceberg. This layer includes models that are learning to understand the laws of physics, the structure of proteins, the mind-boggling complexities of our own genes. This is the layer where the raw intelligence is actually being created. And get this, it's not just a handful of these models floating around. We're talking about roughly 1.5 million of them in the world today. Yeah, 1.5 million. So what does that mean? It means the AI revolution isn't just one single race. It's literally a million different races, all happening at the same time, across every single industry you can possibly imagine. And that brings us to the very top of the cake, layer 5, applications. You could argue this is the most important layer of them all. Why? Because you can have the most brilliant AI model in the world, but it's completely useless if it's not actually applied to solve real-world problems. We're talking about using it in healthcare, in manufacturing, in finance. This is where all that amazing tech finally meets reality. Okay, so now that we have this 5-layer framework, we can do something really cool with it. We can actually use it as a kind of scorecard to break down the AI race between the US and China. And this isn't just my take. This is based on Jensen Huang's own assessment of the situation. And when you look at the scorecard, wow, it paints a really complex picture. It's not a simple blowout for either side. Sure, the US has a clear lead in the chip layer. We're talking generations ahead. But then you look at China's advantages, and they are huge. They've got double the energy capacity, they can build infrastructure at an absolutely insane speed, and their population is way more accepting of AI. Even when you get to the models layer, it's a mixed bag. The US might be ahead with the biggest, most powerful frontier models, but China is crushing it in the open source world, which is a massive engine for innovation. Let's just pause on that first layer for a second. Energy. China has twice the energy generation capacity of the United States. Twice. When you remember that energy is the absolute foundation for this entire industrial revolution, that one statistic, it's just staggering. It changes how you look at the whole race. And what about that infrastructure layer, the speed of building things? Well, Huang tells this story that just perfectly captures China's speed. He points out that in the US, it can take 3 years just to get a permit to build a data center. But in China, he says they can build a hospital in a weekend. Think about that. That kind of velocity gives them a massive, massive advantage when it comes to deploying AI at scale. And this difference in public perception, man, it becomes so important when you get to the top of the cake, that applications layer. According to Huang, if you go to China and ask people, will AI do more good than harm? Something like 80% of them will say yes. But in the US, the majority says no. That social hesitancy we have in the West could become a huge bottleneck, slowing down how quickly we can actually adopt and apply all this incredible technology. So when you add it all up, the scorecard is really complicated, right? Both sides have these huge, clear advantages, which leads to the billion-dollar question. What is the real key to winning the AI revolution? Is it about having the most advanced chips? Is it about having the most energy? What actually matters most? Well, Huang's answer is crystal clear, and it's all about looking at history. He argues it's not about who invents the technology. It's about who applies it first and who applies it most broadly. He gives the perfect example, electricity. It was invented in the UK, right? But it was the United States that went all in, electrifying its industries and homes faster and wider than anyone else. And by doing that, America won that industrial revolution. Of course, when you talk about applying AI this broadly, there's a huge question that always comes up. What's going to happen to our jobs? And on this, Huang makes a really crucial distinction. He says you have to separate the task from the job. AI doesn't automate a whole job. It enhances a task. Think about a radiologist. Their task is studying a scan, but their job, their real job, is to diagnose the disease. AI can help with the task, but the human is still in charge of the ultimate goal. And you know what? The data totally backs this up. For years, people were predicting that AI would make radiologists obsolete. But guess what happened? There are now more radiologists than ever before, and they're way more effective because they're using AI tools. The exact same thing is happening inside NVIDIA. Their engineers are using AI assistants, and it's making them more productive. It's not replacing them. So when you take all this in, the fierce global competition, the worries about the future, you might think the outlook is kind of grim. But Jensen Huang's take is, well, it's shockingly optimistic. When someone asked him if he's hopeful, his answer wasn't just yes. It was, and I quote, 1,000%. He truly believes that we are standing at the dawn of the single most transformative period in all of human history. Just listen to this prediction. He thinks the progress we're going to make in science, in industry, in our society, just over the next 2 decades, all because of AI, will be greater than all of our progress in the past combined. I mean, just let that sink in for a moment. So I think the ultimate takeaway here is pretty clear. Winning the future of AI is about so much more than just writing the best code. It's a 5-layer race, right? And it hinges on everything from energy and infrastructure to national policy and, maybe most importantly, our own willingness as a society to embrace and actually apply this revolutionary technology. That was today's Bite from Musa Bytes.